transition because you were talking about how life at the end, choices of how we see ourselves, how we imagine our own future, creates that real reality. I have prepared some materials and I am sharing a project that we've been working on for the past few years, and it's taking a really interesting development as the global situation unfolds. My name is Jun. I am a co-founder and CEO of a company called Technologist. We're actually best known for a capsule hotel that we have started in Hong Kong. But today, let's talk about home, the concept. Capsule hotel and home seems to be a very distant concept for most people. To most people, home is where one lives permanently, or if we actually look it up in the dictionary, that's the definition, especially as a member of a family or a household. So we actually look back to that, to each of that description of what home is. Home is where it's safe, and to most people, that's already a given. I think in today's society, a lot of people do live in a relatively safe, comparing to the history of mankind, so to speak, environment. And to some people, home is where your parents live. I think that for many cultures, not just Chinese, although the imagery suggests so, that as you accumulate success or wealth in life, you try to create an estate and your family can live together and to create a bigger and bigger house, so that maybe even a separate house so that your people, your offspring or next generation can live close to each other. That kind of concept permeates many cultures. Then, of course, there are some that sees it differently. Home is where the grass is greener. You just move where the opportunities are. There's no such thing as permanence or fixed location to a home. It's just a way of life as home. Of all that, I think the definition that we looked at earlier kind of feels outdated already. So what is home right now? Go on Instagram, search for a home meaning, get something like home is in a place, it's a feeling. It's very touchy-feely kind of description. I don't know how many of you would respond to that. A few things that are facts. Let's look at some facts. Life expectancy is longer than ever in history. So there are new problems that nobody ever have to deal with because they were dead by then. We just have new problems. We have to think about our later life. How do we save up? Where do we live? What if we're lonely, emptiness, all kinds of problems like that. I'm a father of a 5-year-old myself. So do kind of think about, okay, by the time he becomes an adult, where am I? What should I be doing? And so on. Generation, again, ties back to that. I think the unprecedented knowledge expansion causes a disruption or the dissolvement of respect, so to speak. Because if you were in a farming society, your experience of a lifetime of what plants grow, how, they are just status. They become, your knowledge is status. But nowadays, with knowledge being so accessible, so often the kids or the next generation just feel like, hey, you don't know shit. You are the previous generation. So what held society together, held generations together, which is known as the word respect. I think it might sound very Asian, but I don't think that is the only piece. I think it actually permeates. I am educated more than a third of my life in the US, so I do have some exposure to pretty global culture. And then, for information, kind of ties to that. Because opportunities now become so prevalent. If you go on any platform, look for jobs, you can find it, you can deliver your job anywhere in the world. That opportunity that brings us to other places, yes, relocation, some of us might have experienced that, is also revolutionized because of the transparency of information. With all that recognition, we have started a company back in 2014. The foundation or the real estate think tank behind sleep called Spaces Limited playing with the word, of course. From there, we started analyzing the major trends of the problem. Fundamentally, population is still growing. The UN still expects us to grow almost onefold, almost doubling the population of today. And then to think about the density that we're experiencing, the land prices increases that we're experiencing in urban environments, that pushes people further and further out, and then causing them to spend so much time on a commute, over an hour on average for Hong Kong. That all those time suck actually turns out to be, where do you sacrifice those time? Where do you make up those times? Well, sleeping less. Across the whole world, people are sleeping less. And then on the other track, another feeder is the competition. With more population, of course, people are competing for the same jobs, competing for the same opportunities. Then with more competition, even more pressure to stay up and try to produce. But that creates such a vicious cycle that it just decreases the quality of life. With sleep less, productivity decreases. Productivity decreases, you have to work longer hours so to deliver what you promised. And it just keeps going worse and worse. So from that point, we started thinking, how can we find a point of intervention? This is a huge systematic problem. We thought, okay, let's try to make a place where people can sleep whenever they want, and very, very easily accessible. And in order to deliver that quality sleep, how much space do you actually need? In Japanese culture, a piece of tatami is designed specifically for a person to sleep on. So exactly the size of tatami, a 2 meter by 1 meter size, not exactly, roughly, because tatami comes in different sizes as well. That's the space we need for perfect sleep. Oops, wrong button, sorry. And there we created our brand called Sleep with triple E's. One, to emphasize the importance of this action. Two, this 3E actually stands for everyone, every day and everywhere. We wanted to create something of high quality, but that is accessible to everyone. In that spirit, we created Sleep Zero, our seed, in the very central location of Hong Kong, sandwiched by the tourist hub and the CBD. In an alleyway, a small little building, not even a building, a small apartment of 367 square foot. But that's the first capsule hotel in Hong Kong that we launched 4 years ago. And you can see on the top right some visuals of the capsules that we designed from scratch. The space, pretty minimal and rough, you could call, but durable, user-friendly. The capsule itself have one specific feature, the magnetic felt, that balances privacy and safety, because if you have hard doors, fire safety becomes a concern. If you have soft curtains, the person walking in a corridor, that little airflow may actually influence the curtain. It's just hard to feel that you have your own space when you're in that. So that inspiration, kind of like an iPad cover for your capsule, turns out to be hugely differentiating to the rest of the market. This is how it looks like inside your capsule. All real FSC pine wood and indirect lighting that are computer controlled. We also thought about how do we allow ourselves to. Yes?
Can I just ask a question? How long is it, the bed?
How long? There are two versions. There's a European version, or the Western version, and the Asian version. 1.95 your interior for the one in Hong Kong, and the one that we have in Switzerland, that's 2.05.
Oh, sweet, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm quite tall, so I was just asking for myself. I'll go back on mute.
No worries. That's a good question. But as you can see, this whole thing is modular. The key pieces are all CNC. So literally, we just update the file. Of course, material standard sizes goes up to 2.4 meters. So that would be the economically reasonable maximum length. But I think it's very rare to require that kind of length. The major pieces all CNC. So we can actually manufacture most places in the world. with reasonable facilities. So it's a kind of a distributed production capacity, and it's flat packable. It fits into any corridor. It actually fits into the smallest residential lift standard for Hong Kong. So being one of the densest city, I imagine that lift standard is also quite small. But that's the idea. It has to break down so that it can fit into any space, fit through any space, not just into. As assembly is a practical problem. Plug and pay. It has its own air exchange system inside. It uses the gap between the beds. So while both providing the kind of privacy that you need and real sense of private space or safety, while having the material exchange, air and sound between the inside and the outside. And that sleeper was just the first version of what we created. We later got request to have a larger room, that someone we can stand up fully, and one we can fit 2 people in. And so there's a room also as a capsule concept created, prefab, same can fit through narrow ladders, narrow stairs, and be assembled into all kinds of underutilized space. There's an outdoor version, so it can even fit into a garden. Chairs, the latest inclusion to the capsule family, which is what we created for Thailand when we launched our project recently. Unfortunately, with the corona, this is currently not operating, and we'll relaunch it very soon. But then with that creation, it's just fitting into that market. You can be utilizing this chair for a nap, listen to music, listen to white noise, and same as all the other capsules. Every lighting, airflow, and sound are remotely controllable, customizable, and I will go into a little bit more. Anyhow, it pairs with a good foot massage with a Thai masseuse, kind of like a really popular product that we just launched in Thailand earlier this year until recently. Here's a little bit of a visual of reality and some renderings. And with all that inventions, we have created Technologist, as I mentioned at the beginning. That's the wing of our, well, we started with a real estate operation mindset, but now we've created this whole system and infrastructure that we can deploy. With that, we also have the space operation system. We call it EXP. We source around the whole industry for hourly booking operating system or property management system. Then we're filling our requirements. So we started developing our own. In Hong Kong, before the protest, before the corona, we were averaging 115% occupancy across our inventory, beating the already extremely performing hospitality market in Hong Kong. But not financial aside, because if you imagine in an urban environment, how much space is actually being utilized at any moment? People go from a home to a workspace, and then when they leave work, they switch off the light. Of that extremely valuable asset, about 50% is not utilized. 50% of the time, it is not utilized. So to really rethink how utility or utilization can be thought through by having a system that utilizes the hours or by the minutes, it really helps. It's an innovation in itself for our business. Not only that, there are usage patterns of people who only wants to use the capsule during the weekday. I have a home that is far. I want to live in the city center during the week. And over the weekend, I want to go back to see my family or spend time with my girlfriend. Or in the flip side, there are people who live and work in China, and they must be there during the weekday, and every weekend they come home. It's a pattern. They just come every weekend. I think that could be imagined in not just between Hong Kong and China, in multiple cities like Tokyo and suburb, in New York and suburban New York. All the metropolitans have this kind of pattern, we believe. And not only that, if you look in a longer time scale, throughout the year, you even could be living in different regions throughout in different seasons of the year and chase the best ski slope or the best beaches while not having to worry about your quality sleep, because every capsule adjusts to you personally when you travel. It fits you. That's that piece that does what I just described is called REM. It's playing with the word rapid eye movement, of course, but here we use it as our responsive environmental modulator. When I was back in grad school in architecture, I went to the sleep lab of my alma mater at Harvard, and talked to those professors who actually have some of the most authoritative sleep scientists, and ask for advice. How do we design this best possible sleep environment? And it comes out to be not so rocket science after all. The three major factors are lighting, sound, and air. If we can control all these factors, we can. One common example is female and male actually prefers a different temperature, or the ideal temperature to fall asleep is different. If you try to create one environment that's best for everyone, you just can't achieve that. But if inside each of the capsule that environment is controlled, just knowing the profile for the first time, your gender, we can adjust the environment. Of course, if I know Trent, you better, and I know you might prefer your firm mattress, you might prefer to have some ocean waves as the background sound for you to fall asleep. That just remembers it. And when you go from North America to Australia, and back to where you're from, the environment adjusts to that, so you feel you're back to exactly the same home. I have experienced that personally when I deployed our first location in Basel, Switzerland. I was sleeping in our own capsule back in Hong Kong. I took that flight, landed in Switzerland, where the products were shipped and arrived at the location. We unpacked it, assembled it in a single day. In the evening, I slept in the same bed, and it was like the one I was in Hong Kong. So that was a pretty surreal experience myself. We don't do all the technology ourselves. We partner with multiple firms for the lighting, for the mattress, for the sensors, and for the data research. So back to that topic about home. I think home might boils down to your most familiar bed, and wherever, whenever you need it. Why would you do that in Hong Kong, for example? The average commute, 90 minutes round trip per day, 5 days a week of commute, 52 weeks a year. You're wasting about 2 weeks worth of holiday just on the bus or the train. 2 weeks out of 52. That's quite significant. We get holidays lesser and lesser. On the other hand, of course, if you're not in Hong Kong, maybe think in a different context. For $2,000, roughly $2,000 international trip that we take, and the international travel becoming more and more popular. While you travel, unless you are extremely well planned and efficient, you may be leaving your rent or your property that you're renting underutilized, and that's 2 weeks worth of opportunity cost, about $1,000 in a city, in an urban environment. And let's say you take 3 trips a year, that's $9,000 wasted per year. It's not insignificant, I would say. And what if you can now start thinking about the network that you can travel between? We have now 3 committed sites in the world, and we are very much looking into expanding into a global network as the corona actually disrupt the hospitality market. We see that as an opportunity to introduce this completely new and disruptive concept of hospitality. It's not a hotel, so to speak, it's a living network. I really truly believe in, and this conference speaks for itself, a home without borders, where people just interact and live without the constraints of nationalities or national borders or nationalism. And the word sleep actually plays very much into it, because this is one thing that no matter what color of skin you have, no matter where you're from, where you have been, every day, everyone sleeps. So with that, let me try to wrap up with home. I think it's not a place. It's a place where, home is not a place, it's a choice. I think you can choose a lifestyle where you can be much more free and rethink whether you really need a lease or a property that you buy in some place that ties you down there forever with your mortgage and everything. Closing with this thought: you only live once, if you do it right. Once is enough. Feel free to check out more about sleep and our handles with this. And myself, I'm Jun. Thank you so much for your patience and attention. Any questions? I'm open. We have about 3 minutes.